Hey, good afternoon, everyone. Sorry, I have a little technical difficulty here today. Bear with me just a minute here while I get myself situated. All right. I don't think we have any pre-submitted questions today. Oh, we do have one. Iman, AOR. Yeah, Iman, how are you today?
Hi, well, I'm fine, thank you. How are you?
Doing good. Sorry, I'm still getting myself put together here.
Yeah.
All right, and let me get my screen share up. You can see my screen now, right?
Yes, I can.
Okay, great. And let me put our question into the chat for everyone else's help. And let me move Will to a panelist. All right, here we go. Creating a new instance of case entity in a flow using user-defined step, create entity name. Property folder name is new case ID. And that's the question. What goes in property parent folder ID? Also, the rest of the extension data, should I leave extension ID blank? You're creating, okay, so you have a flow, you have a case, and you're creating a new case in a flow.
Yes.
And you're using the create step that is under user defined cases, your case type?
Yeah, exactly.
Right, got it.
And there are some properties to the right that I need to set while creating the case.
Mm-hmm. All right, I'll get one of my cases up here, and we can talk through that question here. All right, so here's a flow. I have some cases on my local. So here's user defined, here's case entity. And here's case test 1A, and I'll find a create step. Okay. So
the first question was the folder name here is the new case ID, right? Because we have a human readable case ID that is it's generated. So it's like C0000123 or 124, etc., etc.
It's the text part of that. What it's going to do is actually collapse together. Let's see if I can't find case test really quick. There's case test 1A. If I edit this, right, you can see I've got my case prefix and prefix length here.
Yeah.
This controls the prefix itself, right? And so here you can see C003. So that folder name is what comes after the prefix specifically. It's going to append the prefix and that folder name together to create your proper case name.
Well, we don't have that, so this should be ignored.
You might have to set it to be blank. It might not. You might have to set it like constant space. If you're not intending to use that, though, that may not. You wouldn't be able to use path-based URLs with this probably. This might be fine. I'm not sure if it might be. There might be edge cases where this.
Well, I can try it out. And but typically I will ignore it because we only have the case ID, the human readable case ID, and that's it.
Yeah, correct. It should take whatever is here, even if it's an empty string, and append it to the case ID prefix and create that.
Oh, okay. That's good. So what about the parent folder ID? What's the parent folder?
Like you see, if I click in the full folder, I'm in this folder here, LNL 710, and here's a case. It tells you where in the portal that case object should show up at. So normally, when you create a process, you might create like an all data folder, or or all cases, right? And this is going to be the parent folder for the cases created, and you're going to give that step the ID of this folder. Or you need a more dynamic design, and you'll determine that a folder ID dynamically.
No, so there's already a folder that houses all the cases, so I can just go and copy the ID of that folder and put it in the parent folder ID.
I'm so sorry. Can you say that? Can you say that one more time?
Yeah, so we have a folder that houses all the cases, all
Yep.
the, like, whenever a case is created, it's in that folder. So I can statically
Mhm.
copy that folder ID and input it here as the parent folder ID, right?
Yeah, yeah, correct.
Okay.
And in fact,
Okay.
with a constant, you just can get a picker, but yes.
Yes. Okay, and the folder description, I'm going to ignore it now. Regarding the extension data, which is the data in the new data type. So I build data and you go there. There are some fields that are not in the that you didn't create, like you didn't
Mm-hmm.
add when you created the defined data structure, right?
Mm-hmm.
Do I have to populate these? Like,
No,
so
you only care
basically,
about the
should
ones that you know about, like
Oh,
STR1.
okay. Okay.
Everything else you can ignore unless you needed to override it for some reason. And honestly, we shouldn't even show you these.
Honestly, right?
Um,
Yeah.
yeah, we shouldn't show you these things.
Okay, okay. So I just care about the data. So the case ID you see here, the first one on the top, we have a human readable case ID. It's not called case ID, it's not it's called billing case ID. So I'm gonna populate this one and the others that I created, but anything else I'm just gonna ignore.
Correct.
Okay, perfect. Well, thank you very much.
All right, you bet. What other questions do we have today? Oh, there's something in Q&A here. All right, let me get this posted. Here's a question from Joseph. Joseph, I'll let you speak if you'd like. Let me see here. How to automatically download a file in Flow. If I pass this to a file download button in a form, the file downloads without issue, but I don't want to have to interact and click anything. I see. Okay. Yeah. What type of
Here's the
file? What's the
file
way you're
data.
saving your file today? Like what type of data type is it?
It's a Excel, XLSX.
But how are you save? What file type and decisions are you saving that as? Like a document, a file reference entity?
It's a file data type.
Is
It's
it
created in the flow.
okay?
It's not saved anywhere.
It's not saved anywhere.
Ultimately, it's a database query that, and then I'm doing a
Okay.
mapping to CSV. And then I just want to download that CSV.
Without having a user click download.
Correct. So I could just run a flow and then it would download automatically.
If you're using like a file reference entity, you can do this. Or even a document. Because you can get like a download URL for those things. But if you're using a flow to generate a file, there's no download URL for you to call it. But like if I were to add a document to my folder here really quickly. So here's
Yeah, I tried the load from file data. I thought that's what it would do.
load from file.
It creates a file reference.
You need to create a file reference. You need to be an entity, I think, instead of a file reference. Like here's a document, right? If I right click on this thing, I can go to manage get document URL. And this gives me the ability to call that document from a URL. And if I take that and I put that URL in a flow that has a step called inform session.
Mhm. Yeah, I did that.
And then here I can do open URL, open a new window, and then I'll just put constant for that URL I just copied. If I run this, it should download that file for me automatically if this still works the same. Yeah, it's flow 2. So here's run, and there's that file got downloaded automatically for me. But that presumes I have a linkable file, and that presumes it's a document or a file reference entity. So if your flow is creating documents or creating file reference entities, you can then reference them by that URL. If it's just generating file, like say you have like a raw SQL step, right? And you're running a query and then you're outputting the query as a CSV file. that doesn't have a, that's not like a proper file in decision sense. Like it doesn't live, once the flow's
yeah.
over, it's done.
Mhm.
So that way you can't link to that via URL. You'll need to have a download button. So there's like this difference between like entity proper and sort of entity in transaction or something, to make up some kind of phrases here,
Uh-huh.
which might constrain your ability to get this one click download that you're after.
Yeah, I guess, well, the load from file data step, I thought that's what ultimately what we're trying to do, create a file reference.
I'm using file reference entity very intentionally. There's a
Alright.
file reference object and a file reference entity in decisions world. Like there's steps here. Ooh, that file's too big, right? Add file references to folder. This step, if it takes in a file reference and then a folder ID, and it creates like a file reference entity. If you get a file reference entity, you can do the same thing I was just doing there. The same thing I did with a document.
Okay,
But load file,
alright,
like load from file data. This gives you, like, this is not a file reference entity. It's just a file reference. There's a, yeah, you need a full-fledged entity.
create a full-fledged, and then I could just delete it after the flow, once it throws into the end form, right? That would work. All right. Well, that's helpful, thank you.
Yeah, you bet. All right, who else has got questions? All right, crowd is shrinking here. All right, I think we'll go ahead and call it a day. No one else is joining. Thanks, everyone. Tomorrow you should have Mr. Jared. See you guys next week. Have a great one.